one of the partners who we have coming in and talking to us every week. Our favorite, Kathy Helbig of Experienced Real Estate Partners. Expect to be moved. 314-276-SOLD. 314-276-SOLD. And Kathy, before we get started today, Tabitha, and I know you have your topic. Tabitha's like, Vic, I got to talk to Tabitha.
I do.
It's why you have to have an experienced real estate agent.
Bring it on, Tabitha.
Kathy, first of all, you look absolutely beautiful in that pink.
Thank you.
As you always do, of course.
It's so drab outside. I thought I'd bring some sunshine to your studio.
You know, my
today.
grandma always said that. She said, when the sun's not shining outside, let it shine from within.
That's right. But
you look fantastic in that pretty pink. You know, my family, as you know, has a lot of real estate dealings going on at all different times. And we do use agents. Mm-hmm. And thank God we had an agent in this situation. And really what I wanted to talk about is the fact that you explained these strange situations that can happen.
Yes.
And they don't happen often, but when they do happen, how necessary it is that you have not only an agent, but a really good agent working on your behalf. My family, we had we sold one property to buy another. Okay, so one property closed one day, and then the other property was supposed to close 4 days later.
Correct.
And so we were very close between selling and buying. And then we found out on Friday that the closing that we have on the property we're buying is not going to go through, because when they did the title search, they found out the seller is not the only person who owns
the title,
the home. That's right. And then, of course, everything's... You know, we sold a house to buy this house, and now it's not going to go through. Right. What do you typically tell your buyers in that situation? Is there any recourse? And I'm assuming there's not.
Well, there is recourse if they're in their time frames of the contract that they were buying to make a claim on the title. So you're supposed to be able to get clear title. The seller physically cannot sell you you can't buy the property no matter what you want to do. So there's nothing you can do. If the title company didn't pull title in time and do the search and find out that they have to go find this other person, the other person might be deceased, like it can take a minute, then potentially, of course, you're going to have to, there he is, you're going to have to get legal advice, but potentially there could be a claim for damages or loss for your family, because you're going to have to go find something else right now. Maybe you still want to buy that property. They might be able to clear it up.
Correct.
Relatively quickly. So if you still want to buy the property, now they got to go rent something, do temporary housing for a minute. You can add all that up before you even involve attorneys. Go back and say, hey, listen, seller and seller agent, this is costing us $6,000 to move temporarily into a residence in for the next however long. We want you to cover that. We want you to reimburse that for us. So I would start there with those conversations and just make sure that your family's not out of pocket for anything. But then, going as far as saying, filing a lawsuit if you had to, if it was something significant, you would just need to make sure you're within your time frames and that type of thing.
How do you feel, Tabitha? Good advice?
I always count on Kathy for the best advice. But in my next question, how often does something like this happen?
Not often, but on occasion. Yeah. So that's what title insurance is all about. And so some people pull title ahead of time before they sell a house. Most don't. Typically the seller should know who's on title, but if it was an inheritance or something like that, that's another thing, is like, how long have they owned the property? Because if they bought it not too far ago and they didn't catch that, if this is an old owner from like 20 years ago, 50 years ago, that's still on there, that's a title claim to go back on the title company that did their closing, because that type of thing should have been discovered. Yeah.
And in this particular case, the seller it originally was two sellers that were on the title. One seller passed away. And so the other seller in the meantime, and the other seller thought, well, she still had the ability to sell the home, but it turns out the other seller on the account had heirs. Yes. So that makes it a tricky situation.
Yes, it sure does.
Kathy, we appreciate you having your session with Tabitha.
No problem.
I appreciate that. I'll pay you afterwards.
Exactly.
Kathy's starting a new series today on how to win offers for your buyers as the spring competition heats up. I just like the last part of that. as the spring competition heats up. I love to hear that.
That's me speaking in faith.
Okay.
Right now.
All right. We got, so what's going on?
Coming. I mean, it's coming. We've seen it on nice houses anyway, but the market is still slowly coming to life in the spring. We've got it between coming soons and new listings this last week in St. Louis. We've got about 570 new houses in the last week, or that's coming for buyers to look at. So, we're hearing that rates are probably going to tick up a little bit more. So we're going to see if that affects the buyers out the gate in the spring. But right now, you need to get ready to compete, because the nice houses are still escalating in prices, and there's still a line out the door for some of them.
A lot of people, are you going to see people this spring that just can't afford the house they want, but they might have been able to afford it 2 years ago, and they're like, I still want the house. And you're like, do you ever say, no, you can't afford it anymore?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously that's what their lenders are for, is to decide what they can afford or not afford. But, we still think there's just, the inventory is just so lacking that it doesn't matter if there's some buyers sitting on the sidelines. There's still a ton of buyers that are looking to buy. We just went and did a new construction field trip type tour with our team earlier this week, and the several builders that we stopped in on all said their prices are going up. Mm-hmm. So we're not looking at a decline. There's not a housing bubble that's going to happen. Right now it's just, there's still so much supply and demand issues that even the rates, because of the time of the year, we'll see some people sit on the sidelines, but we're definitely going to see buyers out there. So if you're that buyer that's looking to win, there's a lot of things that you can do, but this is why it's so important to align yourself with an expert that is an expert in this type of market.
Yeah.
So with that being said, the easy one that people have heard about for years is called the escalation clause. I don't know if any of you guys have sold a house or during this period.
Not in this period.
So the escalation clause is a way to say, I'm going to put my offer in at X, but I'll agree to go up to Y as long as we don't go past Z.
But that means nothing these days, doesn't it? It's like 50 offers on a house now. I mean, right?
So that's where you have to get even more strategic than just doing an escalation clause. You have to be strategic with your escalation clause. And that's where people fall short. I see all the time.
That's why it's so important to have someone like you. Because guess what? We did just sell a house. Right. No one even told us there was anything called an escalation clause. And we had multiple offers. And had we known that might have made a big difference.
Yeah.
How do they do the bidding process? Is that a sealed bid, or is it seems like it could get, what fair housing laws would be, like, let's say 2 people vote, 50 people are bidding on a house, and 10 of them have the exact same price, the same bid, the same offer. How do you choose between the 10 who gets the house?
So as a licensed realtor, you are obligated to present all offers, no matter what, in a reasonable time. So we tell the seller, here's everything that we're looking at, lay them all out. They of course want our opinion. When you're overwhelmed, sometimes we're talking 30 to 50 contracts. That's overwhelming for a seller.
Right.
So they're looking to our experience and advice to say, help me narrow this down, right? So then we a good agent should go through each one so that you are definitely presenting each one. Here's what this one has. Here's what this one has. Now, here's out of these are the red flags that if it were me, I would look at. And so then that starts to narrow down the process. Now we've got those 10 in front of us. I usually try to get it down to 10, then from 10 to 5. And out of that, price isn't always the number one factor. So to me, it's stickiness, price, terms, and stickiness. So is it going to really close? Because what we started seeing when the market got really crazy is that buyers were going nuts. So they would be like, okay, I'm going to go in $100,000 over asking price on like a $400,000 house, which is a really, really great offer. Everybody else might have been coming in at like 50, 60 over, but you got the one guy that came in at 100 called the outlier. So what we started seeing is sometimes those outliers had lost so many times before that they started getting strategic on their own side and going, hey, I'm going to come in with this crazy number so I make sure my foot's in the door. Like I am getting chosen.
Right.
But then the rest of their terms gives them some ability to come back in and basically renegotiate their contract. As a seller, that is so frustrating and disappointing and maddening. So then you get into these battles between the two, and a lot of times those deals blow up, and then now the seller's scrambling to go back and go, hey, everybody else that was fighting over my house, come back, which is not a great place for the seller.
Is it okay for someone like Vic to come and lobby you? Say, I just put an offer in. I really want this. Can I take you to dinner? I mean, has that
as
ever
the agent or as the seller?
Well, as the agent, really, isn't it more you?
It's unethical, right?
Is it
unethical? I guess. Well, I mean,
no, but I know there's point for apartment complexes. I know
does it happen? Absolutely.
Yes, it does.
I mean, you get cookies, you can get flour. Like, yeah,
we need something more than cookies and flowers.
But Kathy, can't the seller?
Dear God.
But ultimately, as an agent, your fiduciary duty is to advise the seller into their best interest, not because I like Toll House chocolate chip cookies with nuts.
No bribes.
But Kat, I mean, seriously, our mutual friend Steve said that he just had an agent 52 offers on the same house.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
What the hell?
Crazy. Yeah. So going back to the escalation clauses, what you need to do, but I'll talk to both sides. As a buyer, not only are you coming in with your best price, you need to assume that there's going to be 10 other people with that exact same price. So then what else does your offer look like? How can you come in with some other contingencies and things? But here's one of the big mistakes I saw people making. They would come in lower or at list price with their initial offer. So on the sales contract page, one says your purchase price offer is X. They would make that offer. And then they would go, but we'll escalate up to $50,000 higher than the another offer that's higher than, let's say the house was $350,000.
Right.
So we're going to offer $350,000. We'll escalate up to $4,000 provided there's another offer that's higher than mine. You have to show the offer and that type of thing too. It has to be a bona fide offer. It has to be more than arm's length. You can't have your brother write a contract type thing.
Right.
So what happens is somebody else comes in at $350,000 also, and now everybody's escalation clauses start looking the exact same.
Yeah. Oh.
See, so you almost start canceling each other out a little bit because one's got to bump the other one up, and then that one's going to bump this one up.
Once the buyer once they're in the ballpark, isn't it like, I mean, I can't imagine it being too long where they just go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Get that. There you go. Take that one.
Sometimes, but then we got to go back and look at the nitty gritty. What are the inspection days? What are the terms on the inspection? What are the areas in the contract that the buyer can then change their mind? Because it's hard when you had all these people that want it and you pick the one that gets squirrely 2 weeks later and you're just like,
but you don't know
what did I do?
And is mortgages at some point you got to get the mortgage too,
yes,
right?
100%. Who's doing the work? So we started like calling the loan officer, like, hey, I'm going to talk to you. I want your buyer to give permission for me as the listing agent to call your loan officer and basically rake them over the coals and find out what is happening with this buyer. How do you know him personally? Like what can you tell me? Because a lot of times, like we talked about pre-approval letters last week, I think it was, sometimes they're not worth the paper that they're written on. So you've got to not only come in with a higher initial price, you've got to figure out what your ceiling is on the escalation. You have to figure out your other contingencies. I would say shorten the time frames. Yeah. That's a huge, huge tip. If you're not going to peel them off completely, shorten them as much as you can. And then as far as like sellers, make sure that you are investigating, like ask questions, have your listing agent talk to the buyer agent. As much communication between the two parties before you accept an offer, you're going to be in a lot better position because sometimes you learn something that you're like, oh, wait a minute, it's a red flag just through communication. So you need to make sure you open those lines of communication up between both the agents.
Where in St. Charles do you like? I mean, where are some bargains? Give us, because nobody's listening. Don't worry. Where are the bargains right now? If you were like, let's go for a ride, where would you take them?
Somebody called me yesterday. I was trying to unload a cool house in Cool Valley. That's probably a good deal. That's St. Charles.
Eric, you need to hire her as your agent. And then go. And then after you do that, you need to hire her upcoming real estate class that she's going to be doing.
That's right.
Online, teaching people how to become real estate agents.
How to be agents.
Where's Cool Valley?
West. Cool Valley is like Belfast,
is that
Ferguson,
south?
kind of West Florissant, that area. Yeah. Just trying to find a buyer for this house.
Yeah.
Come on. No, there's.
You have an account over
St. Charles is
Yeah, I
popping.
do.
St. Charles is popping.
I know.
Of course it
Sorry.
is.
Where is there in St. Charles?
And we were at those builders in St. Charles that said their prices are going up. So
Is
that
there
means
any
it's going
place
to
like
continue.
I don't know? Is there like if you go down to the Katy Trail area in that area? Is there
the farther
anything?
rural you get, the little bit better deal you're
I
going to
don't
get.
wanna
But even
live
the
in
rural is
Warrington.
starting to really pick up
unless
in value.
unless they have a high speed rail, I don't want to live all the way out in Warrington.
Then you buck it up.
Oh.
But I did see somebody post the other day a gorgeous barndominium, and the price was between $4 and
Tabitha,
$5.
here we go.
$400,000 and $500,000. I'm sending you that.
Send
link.
it to me,
It's
please.
gorgeous.
Where was the
Where
was the
was it?
barndominium?
They're building out far St. Charles County, like Lincoln.
They're building it, or that's there.
They have the plans for it.
That's the only place they allow barndominiums,
Yes.
isn't it? West St. Charles
Well,
County.
one of them. Yes.
Did you see when
It has rooms for pigs and cows.
Yeah.
Before you get
inside.
out of here, I've got to ask you about a sale that just took place, but
Absolutely.
we want to make sure that you've gotten all of your little.
For now, we're
dots.
going to have a little series on tips. For
Okay,
women.
I love it.
Mhm.
All right, can we throw something else at you then?
Absolutely. I love it.
Okay, you didn't sell the 7.5 acre estate in Ladue that just sold for
Terminator estate.
that sold
Oh, did that finally sell?
It finally sold
For
for $13 million.
$13 million.
Didn't they pay like $30 million for it or something along those lines?
It's the largest-
I think they
is
tried.
it the
they
largest
tried to
sale
sell it
ever?
for like 20
in the
something.
St.
Okay.
Louis area?
13
It's
million?
one of the highest. Yes.
So it is a
Really?
beautiful home.
Yeah. And then it was under divorce thing, and then I
Yes.
think he ended up buying her out, and
Correct.
yeah. So
It was
then
built in
finally-
2014.
Yes.
Man, that's
Yes.
slumming it in LA.
Yeah.
13 million.
Lake, gazebo, marble fountains,
Yeah,
gated
car
circle
wash.
driveways, tiered patios, terraces, and more.
The garage was crazy, and the garage had its own car wash.
I'm reading the specs, 27,000 square foot main
Yeah.
What
residence.
can you do with that?
Isn't
How
that
many
crazy?
people do you have to have in
That's
your family?
crazy. That's
You-
a little over the top.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with that kind of money? Unless you are going to have so many parties with so many sleepovers.
Yeah. I actually had a buyer that was thinking about that the first time it was on the market. But then
What was the
said-
price then?
I want to say it was like 20.
I know it was definitely
It was more.
in that 20 range or
Yeah.
almost 30 because I
Yeah.
remember because I know the person who lives in that house.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking about that like, holy cow, that's insane.
You know what?
Yes.
You do too.
You do too.
I do.
We all do.
Yes.
Well, you do.
Mark
Eric
Bulger.
won.
It was
Eric
Mark
won.
Bulger.
No, it wasn't one.
And we've
I know
talked
the
about
person that sold his house.
We've talked about him
Wasn't
on the
it
show
Bulger's house?
before.
I tried to sell Bulger's house.
You
too.
did?
And we had a fraud on it. It was crazy. It was it was
Former
$6.5
Rams
million.
quarterback.
Yeah.
And there was this buyer that came in and claimed he was interested, and claimed he was part of bringing in the MLS soccer team. This was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And doing something with bonds or something. Like he had all these people fooled in St. Louis, like smart people fooled in St. Louis. And it was Steve on the corner is like, this guy's full of shit. And I was like, I don't know, I'm starting to feel like this is not real.
Yeah.
It was another agent. It was a brand new agent. So I was helping her out. And we went over and showed Mark's house like 3 or 4 times. We were there for a couple hours at a time. And he flew in to meet us and all that kind of stuff. And then it turned out the guy was a complete fraud, living in his mom's house in Belleville in the basement.
Oh, my God.
Had no money. He never drove to the property. He always had the agent pick him up like at Starbucks because he
Stop
drove
it.
like a Nissan Altima or something. And it was bad. He fooled so many people. It was terrible.
Psych.
But luckily we didn't go under contract. Yeah.
Can you guys
That's
see?
right.
Can you see through that? Can you see through stuff?
Sometimes it's hard. I've had in 26 years, I've had about 6 or 7 just flat out fraud people that you really kind of go, I don't even know what your end game is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. They just, they drag everybody through the process. And a lot of times they're not alone. It's 2 people. So then you're like, you got 2 crazy people, not just one crazy person.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. But
This is the picture, by the way. We're talking. This is the picture of that $13 million. Talking with Kathy Helbig-Strict, the best in the business, 314-276-SOLD, 314-276-SOLD. As you have heard before, Kathy here, or if you haven't, or if you know somebody anywhere, give them a call, 314-276-SOLD. If you have any sort of a question, if you're ready, not ready, whatever, start getting ready or make your move now. Tabitha started the segment talking about how she needed a very
Yes.
good agent to get her
And
through
I can
that
connect
situation.
anybody in the United States to a great agent like
Can we-
us in your area. So be sure to.
Scott, can I see
And
that
I'm glad
picture
to hear
again?
that because that was my situation.
Yeah.
Is it was not in this
Yeah.
area.
I'm better at finding the person
Right.
than the layman, right? So it's much easier to say, hey, find me the best agent I should work with in Boise, Idaho, or whatever it is. And then if I don't know them personally, I will find the agents and connect you with them based on my criteria, what I think you should be working with.
Have you been
Love
inside
it.
that house? I was asking Scott to put it. Have you seen
I didn't
that
get
house?
to go inside. I took the virtual tour of it, but my buyer that was thinking about it a couple years ago ended up saying, too much money in St. Louis, and didn't do it.
Is there still that house in St. Charles County listed for
Thank you,
20
Scott.
million?
I think it's sold too.
Did it sell really?
Yeah, not for that price though.
Oh, well, I assume, but that was an amazing property.
Yeah, I'm 90% sure it's sold. I'll have to double check that. Yeah, it was beautiful.
We could call that. We could all go in together and call that the cancel this house if it's still out
There
there.
you go. We can
Man.
make it the cancel this
I'm in.
content house.
Exactly.
How about that?
I've got people
Love
emailing me
it.
about barndominiums now. Every time we do this,
I'm gonna send you. You need to be my Facebook friend so I can send you that link.
Do it. But
All
I'll
right.
tell you what, here's the thing is there's a realtor that was listening to our show last week or maybe the week before, and they want to put together an idea of how much it does actually cost from start to finish.
Well, I talked to this builder and asked
I know.
him.
And they're like,
Yeah.
well, so for $500,000 land, barn dominium build out, and you're not competing with $700,000. Come on, Vic.
Yep.
But now, Kathy, when it comes to barn dominium sales,
Yes.
that is completely not your realm, correct?
Well, it's not anybody's realm
It's
yet
no
in
one's
St.
realm.
Louis because it hasn't been a thing.
It's
but
like flying cars are nobody's
Well,
realm
and the
yet.
same thing with lending. I hear you have to go to special
it can be our thing
lenders.
because here's the deal. It's still construction.
Right.
It's still land. You acquire land. You do a construction loan or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what the requirements are for barn dominium loans.
I looked
We
it
might have
up
to look
over the
that up.
weekend.
Yeah,
Eric.
what are the-
Okay.
what are
Well,
the-
that's interesting.
So you know what it is? It's a showroom full of blueprints. You walk into Experienced Real Estate Partners,
There
and
you
there's a
go.
room, Vic, and it's all it is monitors with barn dominiums. You just hit the buttons. You're like, I like this one, and then you hit download, and for $2,500, the print comes out, and you go,
All
there
right.
you go, let's rock
There
and roll
you
this.
go. Let's do it.
Come on, Vic.
You know what's funny though? And
What?
I got a room. You got a monitor?
We'll put kiosk in there.
There you go.
You'll have all these young urban professionals walking and just
do
hitting.
design your home right
Until
there.
a big tornado hits Missouri and all
Exactly.
Eric's barn dominiums are gone.
No.
And we're being sued, Eric, for
hold
having
on.
people build barn dominiums.
I know that you guys.
Isn't there like a childhood
Tornado
golden book
Island.
You guys
about
are
this?
laughing at me now.
Are tiny homes seriously growing? I saw an ad this last week where young kids can purchase them very inexpensive, pay like $300
Yeah,
a
it's called
month,
a tent.
and you're actually gaining equity in something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can buy them from Home Depot.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't like the pop-up house.
Not as good, but
I seriously, you unfold it and
No, that's in Vegas. That's something different. That's the one in Vegas.
50,000-ish? Yeah,
Yeah.
the ones we bought. So we work with, what's the name of the Veterans Community Project and build tiny houses for veterans in St. Louis City, homeless veterans. And they're about $50,000 a piece for what we are doing.
That's
the project
cool.
in that
Yes, it
community.
is.
Yeah, it's really cool.
that is
Alternative
awesome.
housing is so popular for a lot of people. Not maybe in
Yes.
St. Louis so much, but all over the country, in LA and Seattle, they like this alternative. They don't have to go and buy something that was built in 1960 and then renovate. They love this thing where they get a little bit of land, they can plop down whatever it is that they want, and they can raise a family. It's kind of crazy.
I just saw something come through my feed the other day that was a house that Sears used to sell.
I
I
remember
know
that.
exactly
See that?
what you're talking
and
about.
They trucked it in on the railroad. So
And when you look sometimes like I do,
it looks like a Maplewood house.
it does. I was just going to say, you see those houses out there and I'll see it. I said, oh, that's that Sears Roebuck house.
Yeah.
No,
Totally.
I love it. Never know what you're going to learn when Kathy comes in studio. Kathy, thanks for your time today. Kathy
you.
Helbig, Strict Experience Real Estate Partners. As always, expect to be moved. 314-276-SOLD. 314-276-SOLD. When you call the office for anything, let them know that you saw Kathy here, that you like her segments on Cancel This. It helps them know as well as they spend the time, the effort, and everything else with us for cancelthisshow.com. Kathy, Steve, appreciate it. Have fun, guys.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you
I
later.
got so many other questions.
Of course you do.
We got to do cocktails.
You need Eric needs his own separate cafe show.